Great, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about pro forma documents and the importance of assumptions. And this is kind of the introduction to our videos on the break-even analysis, the pro forma income statement, the pro forma balance sheet, and the pro forma cash flow. Pro forma documents, it's basically like where you're looking into the future, okay? And there's only one reliable way to know what the future will hold, right? What you do is you pick up your landline and you dial one of those 1-900 psychic numbers like Miss Cleo, and you ask her what the future will hold so you can fill out your pro forma documents. And you know what's even more sad? As a child growing up in the 80s and 90s, I knew what 1-900 numbers are. My young students do not understand what a 1-900 number is. Like, the world is truly coming to an end. In all seriousness, the pro forma is a projection. You make an assessment and you try to do the best you can. Thoroughly investigating future trends and making good assessments of those future trends are important for a couple of reasons. One, hopefully it'll help you, a good prediction of the future will increase or improve the chances of success for your business. But also banks are going to ask this, venture capitalists are going to ask this, and they're going to pick at every assumption that you make. And this is a real challenge, right? Because if you're an entrepreneur, probably you're doing something that's kind of new. So how do you counterbalance the newness, therefore the unpredictability of the future based on that, versus trying to match some sort of industry trend? This is a challenge that every entrepreneur faces. In fact, this is that tug of war between causation and effectuation that I talk about in some of the other videos on my channel, right? This is something we got to worry about. Let me give you some sources that you can use to gain your assumptions. You can always start off, and my students know this, and on my channel I've got videos describing this, but you can always try some basic field work to start, right? Think about a feasibility analysis, okay? Feasibility analysis is like the pre-business plan, and that's where you go out and you actually ask customers, hey, I've got this cool idea, what do you think about it? It's basically a combination of survey/open-ended interviewing technique. And I think that can be one way to kind of start filling in those assumptions, right? Either before, after, or concurrently with your feasibility analysis, because there's no magic order that's going on here. You can also do some design thinking work, right? Or that's where you go out and you start observing customers and trying to guess at what their needs are. Maybe you even have like an idea what your business is, but you're not sure. And you go out and you see, well, I wonder if this would meet a customer's needs, right? And you start doing what we call a latent needs analysis. Latent. Okay? Latent needs, in other words, you don't know that you need something until you've got it in your hands, right? You think about today, nobody knew that they needed an iPhone until they had one in their hand. And now everybody has to have one. It's become a need, right? So part of your, you can also do your feasibility analysis and your design thinking concurrently, right? You ask some people some questions, they kind of give you some answers that kind of biases your next round of observations, and then you go and you kind of observe how people interact in an environment, how potential customers interact with their environment, and you kind of take a stab at that. So that can be one way to fill out assumptions, right? Another way to kind of help you fill out the future is through, also on my channel, is the scenario building exercise. And that is a way, most entrepreneurship textbooks say do 3, but I say, do a few dozen. Scenario building is a way to blend things that are very obvious in terms of future trends with things that you think might happen and kind of combine them to compose coherent narratives about a future state, okay? And based on that future state that you have predicted through scenario building, it could help you predict what kind of businesses you'll have or what kind of ideas that you should launch, okay? Again, that's kind of the blend of the literary and the analytical. I like scenario building. I think it's useful. Also on my channel, you can also look at strategic group mapping. Strategic group mapping is a great way to identify your most direct competitors and also to identify gaps within a marketplace. Now, I usually tell my students that you need to do like maybe a dozen strategic group maps to thoroughly complete the analysis. Of course, if you see gaps in a marketplace, that either means you've got a great opportunity or it's a terrible idea and you don't want to do that. If you want to see more examples of that, see my playlist on strategic group maps. Also, strategic group mapping is useful because it helps you identify your most direct competitors. Those competitors that have similar key success factors to you. Okay, that's huge. All right. And based on those competitors that have similar key success factors to you, you can look at their cost of labor, their cost of capital, their cost of materials and things like that, and you can extrapolate that to your own business. Right? It's not perfect, but it can help. Of course, you can also look at just some basic research stuff. I can guarantee those of you that are budding entrepreneurs, there is nothing out there that is so original that it has not been written about at least 50 times on Google Scholar. That's why with my students, we do a lot of analysis of research papers, because everything you are doing has been already written about dozens of times. And you can learn what works, what doesn't work, what kind of works, what we don't know. I mean, there's so much you can do. And by the way, when banks are saying, well, how did you get those numbers? We can say, well, you know what? I read this article in the A+ journal ASQ. I looked at this statistical analysis in this A-level journal, and da-da-da-da. You are now an entrepreneur who is thoughtful, creative, and has actually done the research. That's pretty good. Okay. Now there's other things that you can find on there like BizMiner, and that can give you information about privately held companies and what their costs are. I really like BizMiner. And of course, you can look at similar firms that are large firms in your industry with things like Yahoo Finance and figure out how they're doing as an industry. And of course, you can also get a Form 10K for any publicly traded firm, and that's available on the SEC website. But these are the things that you can use to fill in your assumptions, right? But you've got to make sure you have solid assumptions because you're going to get asked about that, okay? Once you've got a solid set of assumptions, oh, and I forgot to mention the most obvious ones. Since you've already watched these videos on the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement, well, you can already use your past documents as a basis for projecting the future. However, a lot of totally new firms don't have that luxury, so sometimes you just got to start with your assumptions just based on the things that I just mentioned, right? But at least if you have some previous data, that does make it a little bit easier, assuming you've made it to the first, second, or third year. And of course, having that data can also show a bank, assumptions that are a little bit more grounded in reality versus just strictly analytical tools. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, give me a thumbs up. That's also like a like. You can subscribe or you can comment down below. Our next video, we're going to talk about the break-even analysis. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.